It's another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome to the Monday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. January 13th already, folks. Wow. So you can join the conversation over the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. That's how you get into the studio for two-way talk and conversation. Ted flying the board back there at HQ on the other side of the glass. As you can see, he'll get you set up and into the studio. And don't forget, our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. There's a screen here in the studio. It shows up there, and we try to incorporate it into the show. And you can join and be part of the show that way as well. Weekday afternoons at 1 o'clock, the Joe Mangiacotti Show, except Fridays where the Carr Brothers come on in. Don't forget, we have Frankie Boyer Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There's some changes with the Howie Carr programming as that unfolds as well. So that takes care of some housekeeping. Of course, we're always streaming 24/7 on the TuneIn app. That's for your convenience. Us, as long as with thousands of other radio stations, can be found on the TuneIn app. And if you don't have it, it does take seconds to download it. And then just punch in WCRN. You're going to see the really cool logo that's behind me here in the studio. And do me a favor, hit the like button. Then we're very easy to find, and we know you're there. I stream my shows to my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show. That's where you can follow me: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Also on the Facebook page of the station. And you can see me on Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and even live on my Rumble channel. And of course, the show is then always uploaded to Twitch TV. And that announcement there, Twitch TV is merging with the AUN TV network, America Uncensored News. AUN and Twitch TV will be coming together. We're a streaming channel. Twitch TV is. We'll pick up, I think, 11 towers and TV stations, mostly in the Northwest. So it'll be a combination of a streaming channel with terrestrial type TV stations. But go to Twitch TV on your Fire Stick, Roku, or Smart TV. And check that out as well. So we got a lot to talk about, as we always do. We try to blend a little logic with a little wit here, truth, and maybe just a pinch of some sarcasm. I don't know if you've ever picked up on that or not, Ted. So let's face it, sometimes all you can do is laugh or, to keep from crying here. But let's dive into some stuff here. The curious case of Newsom and the fire questions. Look, this has been just dominating the news for the last week. And this is horrific. The footage that we see, the fact that people's homes have just gone up in literal smoke and their ashes. Not just you've got the issue of the home. You lose the building, the home that you live in, your shelter, your safe space, all of that. But you lose all of those things inside. Whatever you weren't able to leave in the evacuation, whatever you didn't have in a fireproof box, whatever you didn't have in the bank and the safety deposit books, those things. Photographs, photo albums, trinkets, jewelry, clothing, your favorite stuffed animal, whatever, it's gone. It's gone. And story after story, we got it. And my heart does go out. But my attention and focus has been to the bigger picture and the questions about all of this. And how does this happen? And how is the response so poor? So our really good friend over here, the governor of California, Newsom. I know Trump says Newsom. Yes, the same guy. He seems to believe that hair gel is an acceptable substitute for leadership, apparently. And he's making the headlines again, not in a good way. This time he's caught on video complaining about the hurricane force winds of misinformation swirling around those devastating Los Angeles fires. I swear this guy can try to put a spin on the straightest of anything. The direct lines from A in causation to B, and he still wants to spin that. Now, you might think that The hurricane he's referring to is the wind blowing the flames around. No, it's the whirlwind of inconvenient questions from voters and reporters. That's the wind. That's the turbulence that he doesn't like. See, like, why did my house burn down? Straight enough, simple question. Hey, where's the water, Gavin? Apparently, these are divisive questions. These are unacceptable to him, folks. And what's Newsom's solution? He runs crying to Joe Biden, asking him to censor the people asking those questions. And this is all happening with the backdrop of the way of more and more detailed and solid proof and really hard look at just how much Joe Biden's administration and those controlling it were censoring the American people through the tech companies. And imagine that. The governor of the nation's most populous state, for now anyway, I mean, more people have left California in his term than entered California, first time in the history of the state. Instead of addressing real problems like water mismanagement or misallocated emergency funds. Remember, and all this going on, he's doing this emergency session for $25 million to fight or to make it Trump-proof. How about making it fireproof? That might have been a little better for the energy, right? In the funds. So he's lobbying the president to muzzle critics. That's just kind of the playbook now for them, aren't they, on the left? You can't make this stuff up, folks. It's like Newsom saw the First Amendment, shrugged and said, hey, not in my state. This is the kind of leadership California wants, though, because they put these clowns in office. And I guess they'll keep voting for it. But for the rest of us who believe in law, order, and, free speech, it's a stark reminder that the left isn't just ignoring the Constitution. They're trying to actually rewrite it in crayon. And you are seeing, or I'm seeing, I'm assuming you are seeing the same thing I'm seeing, some of these Hollywood-type people hitting the airwaves, doing the social media posts, and they're angry. Because where was everybody when insurance companies were leaving the state and they stopped insuring properties? And insurance is underwritten, folks, right? All your insurance underwritten. When you get your car insurance, they're looking at your driving record and your age and how many accidents you've had, all that. When you get life insurance, that's big underwritten. When they get your house policy, things like your zip code, your address, how many break-ins are in that, everything's underwritten. So when insurance companies start either having to raise rates ridiculous or they won't insure that area anymore, the logical question at that point is why? It's because they are looking at the policies in the management of that state, just like a state has a credit rating. They look at this and they say, well, they're not doing the right things. They've stopped forestry maintenance. They've messed up the waterways. They're spending all their money on these programs without taking care of the basics first. So something's going to happen. It's going to be a catastrophe. And we're going to be on the hook for more money than we take in, which isn't a good business model. In the Pacific Palisades, I always liked that term. I remember hearing Pacific Palisades as a kid and thinking, what a cool name that is for a place. It sounds so beautiful. I've heard Pacific Palisades more in the last week than the last 50 years. So the Pacific Palisades voting precinct, the results are in from the 2024 election there. You know how long it took California, by the way, to finish technically and officially counting their votes? What's up with that? Well, surprise, surprise. Kamala Harris swept that area with 71% of the vote. That's right. The same Kamala Harris who spent the last 4 years giggling through serious policy discussions and losing track of her train of thought in almost every time she boarded that train. But here's the kicker. Robert Kennedy Jr., who jumped in as an independent before endorsing Trump, he barely made a ripple in these precincts. Just about a whopping 1% of the vote. That's like finding one decent avocado in the whole bin at Trader Joe's. You know there's one in there somewhere, but you can't really find it unless you feel around and squint. So what does this tell you? it tells us that despite their complaints about rising crime, homelessness, fires, these voters will still march lockstep to the polls and vote for the very policies that created the mess. It's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, folks. So will this change? Will the more MAGA, conservative, common sense candidates prevail in short-term future elections or not? And let's not forget that the latest drama from the Washington Post, affectionately known around here as the Woke Wash, longtime columnist Jennifer Rubin, she's packed her bags. She fired a few parting shots at Jeff Bezos and announced her new project, The Contrarian. It's a tagline? I don't know. Not owned by anybody, well, except presumably, like Jennifer Rubin herself. Her exit adds to the growing list of departures from the Post, which is shedding employees faster than California is shedding taxpayers. Rubin accused Bezos of betraying journalism's sacred mission, which in her view is to take down Trump at all costs, not reporting the facts and being fair and impartial. She even accused the billionaire owner of enabling democracy's most acute threat. And no, she's not talking about China, Russia, or even inflation. She's talking about Trump. This is what passes for courage in liberal circles. Whining about the owner of a multi-million-dollar platform while simultaneously failing to acknowledge the layoffs, the talent exodus, and the 250,000 subscribers who canceled after Bezos spiked their Kamala Harris endorsement. Folks, this is the same crowd that tells us we need more government control over our lives. Can you imagine how badly they'd mess that up? So what's the bigger picture here? Well, and what do these stories have in common? Well, they're a window into how the left operates, whether it's Newsom's censorship, tantrum, Pacific Palisades voters doubling down on failed policies, or Rubin's melodramatic exit from the collapsing newsroom. It's all part of the same pattern. They refuse to take responsibility. They double down on bad ideas. And when reality comes knocking, they try to rewrite the rules. But we have to take our first break here in the Monday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show and AM 830 WCRN. What say you? Join the conversation. Lines are open, 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Our text line, 617-297-8388. Stick with us, folks. We're back in 2 and 10.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. But MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Perner Logging and Land Clearing, fully equipped with state-of-the-art equipment to handle all of your lot and land clearing needs, whether it's 1 acre or 100. They regularly service customers in the local area and will travel to neighboring communities and beyond to get the job done. Now, whether you're doing new construction, renovations, or clearing land for a new development, the Perner Logging and Land Clearing team of experienced personnel makes small or large jobs run efficiently, giving them the ability to always keep the competitive edge. They'll quote your job from something small to hundreds of acres, factoring in all aspects, including the wood salvage value, if any. In addition, they have the right equipment for each size job, making for the most efficient job site possible. For every job, Perner Logging and Land Clearing make sure the client's goals are the main objective. Call Perner Logging and Land Clearing today for a free estimate, 978-270-9916. That's 978-270-9916.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second segment here, the Monday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Lines open and available. What say you? What do you think of all this? What do you think of, and what are you thinking of when you're seeing tragic story after tragic story? When people are telling you about what happened to their property. And there's wonderful stories about neighbors pitching in and people checking on an elderly and Canoe Reeves sprinkling his garage and all of that. But what we got to get to is, how does this happen? And now the winds are going to spark up some more and keep up. How do they stop this? And then we're trying to get all the details accurate as to the budget cuts and the fact that they fired several firefighters because they wouldn't get the jab. How's that working out for you? Questions have got to be answered. Policies have to be changed. These things that are happening right now, most can be directly attributed to the poor forestry maintenance, not clearing brush, not doing controlled burns, not managing the water correctly because they were worried about a field mouse or field mouse's migration pattern. So now Newsom calling for censorship. I do hope between everything we're learning, between the Twitter files and now Zuckerberg's coming on, he didn't really do an apology. Now he's whining about how much the Biden administration made him censor things and how he said when they wanted him to take down things that were true, that he refused to. But he took down the laptop story. We can point to more examples of where that's not true, Mark, than you can of when it was true. So now we got California Governor Newsom caught on video requesting censorship of critics over the fires. Don't change the policy. Don't fix the problem. Just shut the people up who are asking questions or pointing things out. This incident highlights Newsom's discomfort with criticism in his appeal to Biden for intervention. Did you catch the one when a resident, a woman, is telling him, and she's basically in tears, and why isn't there any water? Why is this happening? And he pretends he's on the phone with Biden. She says, put it on speaker. I want to hear it. Well, the cell service is down. I mean, just, you know what the guy's like. And Newsom's actions raise serious questions about free speech, government overreach, and, of course, accountability. And the video is evidence here that Newsom is asking Biden to address this misinformation in this video. He's framing the criticism as a hurricane force winds of lies. I watched Jen Psaki on something, and she was twisting this. This is all Trump's fault, by the way. It's the Republicans and Trump's fault. And she's just there. The woman has no self-awareness and no embarrassment whatsoever for the crap that she spews out. So Newsom, his appeal for action to suppress dissenting voices, particularly on social media. He says that, statements implying that criticism undermines public trust in government narrative. So because there's criticism, because somebody might point out the failed policy or the fact that that decision stopped this from happening, which helped cause this, well, no, that doesn't help the government narrative. If you tell the truth, if you tell those things, then what we're saying doesn't make sense. So some observations here from Newsom's actions. He's very comfortable with censorship, right? Newsom's willingness to involve federal authorities to silence critics, like that's the norm. That's what you do. Like he's got a handbook. When reporters are asking too many questions, call the feds, call your Democratic puppet master, or puppet, I should say. And then the reframing of democracy, right? Shift from protecting individual rights to prioritizing government narrative, that the government's version, the propaganda, outweighs the individual rights of free speech and certainly of the right to know what's really going on. And this is just a pattern of behavior. Newsom's history of targeting speech that challenges his policies, such as banning deep fake videos. First of all, they labeled actual videos as deep fake. Remember that? I mean, actual video wasn't tampered with, but they certainly don't like the storyteller. So, oh, that's just, I mean, the binder would say that all the time. But on the broader scale here of censorship and the apparatus of censorship, in some historical context, expansion of censorship mechanisms since the Obama administration. He's the president that was spying on reporters, not Trump, not even Bush. Collusion between government and social media platforms, the Twitter files, now the Facebook files. And that is coming out, and truth's going to keep coming out. And we've got the miss and dis and mal, right? Disinformation, misinformation, malinformation framework. Definition to use to justify suppression of dissidents or just dissent. Malinformation as true but inconvenient data. So what is the reaction and the public reactions, and what are the implications? Criticism from voters are a little too late. A lot of criticism and questions you're supposed to ask before you go in the ballot box, by the way. The whole idea of a campaign in forums is for people, reporters alike, to ask these questions. If you just spent $12 million to buy a home or renovate a home on the Malibu coast or in the hills, shouldn't you be asking those questions about fire insurance and coverage and whether it can happen? A lot of these people, when they go to close or they start the process and they get the quote, they find out that their fire, their insurance premium, because of mudslides and everything else, they have earthquakes, is 2 or 3 times the mortgage payment, which puts them out of qualifying. Their LTV is whacked. So LA residents asking pointed questions about fire mismanagement, it's vital now, but it was very vital in the election, before, because you had candidates. The guy who lost to the current mayor, he had answers to these things in the debate, in the campaign. He talked about these things. But the elite were too busy with DEI, diversity hires, and making sure that the firefighters got the jab. Not that you had enough of them and that they were qualified. And then for Newsom to have this dismissive or dismiss legitimate concerns as calling them damaging, asking the questions and pointing these truths out, talk about your inconvenient truth, that's damaging. And it's erosion. Story after story, situation after situation, every time the incompetency of this particular state's government and our federal government comes up, it erodes at the trust, whatever's left there. Growing skepticism about the government's ability to handle crisis transparently. Everything's a cover-up. I mean, we found out about the don't go to a Trump house in the aftermath of hurricanes because of a leaked memo, internal memo. And of course, the free speech concerns. Newsom's actions as a case study in undermining the First Amendment really is. The terminology he uses, the ease in which he talks to you like you're an idiot to explain that all of these questions and criticism just damage our narrative. Newsom referring atypical conversations from constituents questioning the government as damaging. His direct appeal to Biden suppresses dissent in meeting involving, let me rephrase that, in a meeting involving Vice President Harris and First Lady Joe Biden. Newsom's targeting of voters asking critical questions about the fire, such as why did my house burn, as unproductive. California's proxy to big tech. That's always an issue too, right? So they all settled. Silicon Valley. Some are relocating. Elon Musk stopped building Tesla there. I've been saying it for a while now. I think it's a matter of time before X locates out. Why wouldn't he relocate X to Texas near the new big truck plant that he built in his headquarters? He'd got rid of what, 75, 80% of the staff? And you know that building's astronomical to keep. Elon Musk's role in this, by the way, shifting dynamics with X, resisting censorship pressures. Zuckerberg seeming to kind of come late to the party, but he seems like he's trying to make some amends there, but way too late. And can he just do it? I mean, the culture he created at Meta or Facebook, right? This change from the third-party fact checkers, which from day one, folks, we asked the question, well, who are the fact checkers? If the fact checkers are the same people writing the left-leaning diatribe in the first place, then of course their version of facts are going to be fine. It's ridiculous. Shift from a government accountable to the people to one prioritizing institutional narratives. It's urgent need for transparency, folks. Calls for accountability and safeguarding of free speech rights, all necessary. So the impact of Newsom's future ambitions here, well, the controversy could hinder his potential aspirations in 28. Vigilance against censorship and advocacy for transparent governance. Folks, we got to take our mid-show break here on the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show and AM 830 WCRN. Lines open and available. What say you? 508-871-7000. We'll be back in 2 and 10, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. It's going to be seasonable, if not a little bit mild today, with highs in the lower 40s and a mix of sun and clouds. We've got an evening front that sweeps through, and with it a few sprinkles and flurries, and that is the leading edge to some cooler air that will drive the forecast for the rest of the week. So for tomorrow, highs will be in the lower 30s. It's going to be a good 10 degrees cooler. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central, 830 WCRN.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. But MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Monday afternoon edition here of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Hey, our text line, that's up and running. Use it, 617-297-8388. You text it like you would any other number. The text will appear on a screen in front of me here in the studio. We try to include you in the show, work it into the conversation. That's 617-297-8388. In the phone line, you can join the conversation. What say you? 508-871-7000. Let's jump to the phones. Ken has jumped in here. Hey, Ken, hope you had a great weekend. And what say you? Did you get snow over the weekend too?
Yes, a whopping 2 to 3 inches.
Cool.
That gets us up to about 9 this season.
Yeah.
Somehow I think February is going to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like when I was a kid, we had more intense and more snow than we do now, but maybe I just remember it through the lenses of childhood.
Well, I remember the winter that went 2014 and 2015 having 100 inches in 5 weeks.
What was the year we had the April 1st storm? That was 2000. Yeah, man.
I think there were 2. There was one
Yeah.
more recent in the last 20 years. I remember one about 40 years ago.
Yeah, there was
I
one
think
a
that's
long
in
time.
college.
Yeah, maybe that's the one I'm thinking of, because it was April 1st and I was coming back from Attleboro. I just got the general manager's job at the station down there. And from the interview and coming home, and it was so bad that I was coming up 495, and what saved me is one of those Stop and Shop Pod P or P-Pod trucks. He was barreling up 495, and it was a whiteout. You couldn't see the road, much less lines or anything. And I was going to try to just pull over and try to wait it. And I got behind the truck, Ken, and just took the weight. And I figured if he drives off 495, I'll drive right off with him. And got up to 495 and inched my way back. I was living in Worcester then, but it was crazy. Yeah, April 1st snowstorm. It was crazy.
Never
man.
know.
So what say you? You obviously you've been watching. I mean, it's not like you can't not watch the coverage of these fires and the stories and the devastation. But you know, I do not want to diminish at all the tragedy and what happens to these people, but I just get angry every time you're hearing these stories, because it's not like a lot of this wasn't, and I'm going to get into Juan Manuel Sierra Olivier, right? The illegal alien that they've arrested. I'll get into that, but just the fact that they stopped the maintenance, right? The forestry maintenance, they stopped holding water like they're supposed to because of a field mouse's migration pattern. A lot of this could have been dealt with, right? The water wasn't in the hydrants. The fire department budget's been cut. They're down firefighters. They actually fired firefighters because they wouldn't get the vax. Whose fault is this?
Well, there's so many stories of things that are messed up. Did you catch the old Adam Carolla testimony to Congress?
I think I did see that clip when he talked about being 19 years old and walking in there.
Exactly.
He was living in his parents' garage. His mother's on food stamps. 19, he goes in, can I get a job as a firefighter? And they said, maybe see us in 7 years. You're not Hispanic, gay, or a woman. Why is any of those things matter? You have a healthy 19-year-old person walking in, and I don't know, but I'd be willing to bet that at 19, Adam Carolla could have thrown a 180-pound dummy over his shoulder and climbed a ladder with it.
And see, that's the amazing thing. This was more than 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been off course radical for a long time.
Yeah. Couple generations.
Yeah. And did you catch the tail end of that story?
No. Fill this in.
So he does go back. He gets mail at his father's address to have him, it's been 7 years. You can come in for a test to apply to be a firefighter. So he goes into the office, and in front of him is a black woman. And he says, "I'm just curious. When did you get invited to come?" And she said, "Wednesday."
Huh.
And here's the kicker. He said that she might have gone 95 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing
Yeah.
to say, okay, we've had these racial discrepancies, so let's get more black
But
men.
that's when
white
everything
men.
else is equal. When everything else is equal. You know what I'm saying? If you've got two people who, and I don't care if one's 170, one's 180, one's 220. The point is, if the qualifications have been or had been prior to getting woke on this stuff, if it had been that you got to pick up X amount of pounds and climb 2 ladders or carried X number of feet with 50 pounds of your respiratory gear and all that, if you can do that, and the next person can do the exact same, everything's equal, you score the same on the written, all of that, maybe you try to equal it up. But when you're putting people who do not come out on top, right, on the physical matrix in this particular case, because the firefighter that's a very physical job, that's what it's based on, and a little brains. And if everything else is equal, that's one thing. But when you're giving people a job because of their skin color, their orientation, or their sex, their gender, I should say, and you're discounting the fact that they can't physically meet the requirements, what do you think is going to happen? Do you want the doctor who got the job based on their skin color or their gender opposed to their scores and their practical exams in medical school? Do you want the guy flying or the woman flying the plane getting the job because of those factors?
It almost makes you wonder how to get not much worse than it is. How in the world? Because literally there have to be competent people who simply go along with the radical agenda, but hang around.
Mm-hmm.
And is this the breaking point? And does the breaking point mean the policies get changed, or that the people who are confident just leave out of desperation?
Yeah. I
Or
think a
somehow
lot of
be-
people, I mean, and you know, just to expound on that, Ken, a little bit, I think there's a lot of people who don't run for office, who don't go into public service, because if they aren't part of that cabal, that part of that wokeness or that group, right, they're going to be unfairly treated in the media and basically attacked. And look at how many things happened to Trump and people around Trump just for not being those people. So I think that the climate we're in has caused good people who normally might have run for office and been good for us not doing it, right? Because they're all asked the same question. Do I want to put myself through that kind of scrutiny and attack? And most of the time it's no, I do not.
I think you make a good case, and part of the logic too is like Massachusetts, California has referendum, and you see the results of the referendum, and you would think it would be a purple state, say like New Hampshire, the way they're voting. They vote kind of a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, and yet when it comes to the candidates that they're choosing, far left. And maybe it's simply because of what you described. The reasonable people get shut out.
How many seats go unchallenged in Massachusetts because they can't find a decent Republican to run? Not that we don't have decent conservatives and decent Republicans. You know, most people who tend to be that way in politics, a lot of times they run later, right? Because they've had a career or they have a business they built, and then they decide to run for office and try to transfer those skills because they're frustrated because they've dealt with the regulation, and maybe they've done permitting, and they, of course, they certainly paid the taxes, and they said, well, maybe I can help take all these skills I had and working in this business and rising to the top or building a business and try to do it. You know, so a lot of times you see people on the right go into, you know, public office later in life. Many years ago, there was an adage told to me when I was young and getting in politics that Republicans tend to run for change and to affect change, but a Democrat runs for a career. And then I started to see that. You saw it. They have farm teams, basically. You know, they start out and the Democratic Party in the state is very good about it's your turn. You're going to sit this one out, and then you'll take that seat when this one moves to the Senate, and you're going to do this. And as long as you behave yourself and stuff, you eventually get your turn. But in the meantime, you're on a state job somewhere, so you're building the retirement. Right. And then they make sure you do a good job, Ken. What do? They make sure that you have 3 really good years, right? Like somebody who left the Senate and became president of UMass, and, you know, then their salary goes to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So their pension's 80% of $600,000 or $700,000.
And the people that Massachusetts is recruiting now aren't the ordinary Joe. Not speaking of Mangiacotti, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, and a lot of them were ethnics when you go back 40, 50, 60. You know, they're Italian, Catholic, whatever the your neighborhood represents. Now it's more the protesters, you know, right out of college that make their name in some way, and then they make a career, and they're far, far left. And the opposite of what we're describing is what we have in New Hampshire. For simple reason that they only pay the legislators $200 per session.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we only pretty much get the older people who have already, you know,
who can afford to do this, right? They have a
part-time
pension or they have a retirement. Yeah, I got it. I was in Nashua Station for a while as the news director up there, and I came from Massachusetts, and I found out how the legislature works up there. Now, back then, I don't know, New Hampshire used to do their fiscal budget 2 years at a time.
Right.
So they did. Do they still do that?
Sure.
Yeah. So they didn't have to meet every year or that often, and then they did their budget for 2 years and stuff. And Ken, I'm against the clock. I just got the thing. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. But yeah, that's how they did it, folks. They did it every 2 years, so they didn't have to meet. I think they got a couple $100 a year, and they got a plate. I think they got a plate that said assembly or something on it. Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000. Lines open and available. You can join the conversation. Stick with us. Back in 2 and 10.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own, but MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Looking for a station that brings you all sides of the story? Tune in to 50,000 watt powerhouse WCRN, where the left and the right meet in the middle. Whether you lean left, lean right, or just want to stay informed, WCRN has you covered with diverse voices, lively debates, and thought-provoking discussions. From politics and health to pop culture, you'll hear it all right here. Radio Central, where opinions from both sides come together for the conversations that matter. From the center of the dial, the center of New England, and the center of information, AM 830, WCRN, Radio Central.
The best Italian cuisine served by some of the nicest folks you'll ever meet is at Ziti's Italian Trattoria. It's fine Italian cooking at the Speedway Shopping Center, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro. It's like sitting down with your family for an authentic home-cooked Italian meal. From intimate dinners to catering for events of all sizes. From pizzas and calzones to classic Italian dinners. Every meal at Ziti's is one you'll remember. Head on down to Ziti's, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on the Monday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000. That's how you get into the studio for two-way talk and conversation. Don't forget, you can text the show at any time on our text line, 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Appears on the screen here in the studio, and I try to work it into the conversation. So there has been an arrest of this Juan Manuel Sierra Levy. He's an illegal alien, blowtorch in possession, and he was already out on probation. I guess this is the connection to what they call the Kenneth Fire in Los Angeles. They have different names, right, based on neighborhood and things like that. But 508-871-7000. Let's go to the phone. Steve's waiting patiently. Hey, Steve, what say you?
Joe, I did see a clip on that. You're talking about that guy with the torch. Citizens actually, from what I saw, citizens actually made a citizens arrest, and they even put tie wraps on his hands so the cops came.
Yeah, he was riding around with the blowtorch in one hand on a bicycle, right? Is that the deal? I understood. And they said, wait a minute, what the hell do you need a blowtorch for? Well, everything's burning down.
And didn't they let him out?
Yeah.
From what I understand, he was arrested, and I think he out the next day again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my word. You know what my concern is, Joe, is watching this governor and this mayor is our state of Massachusetts. I noticed, have you noticed that our governor is like backtracking with this is not a sanctuary state, and then with this guy in I think it was, I forget where he is, somewhere he got caught in the shelter with the $1 million worth of fentanyl, I believe it was, and the
yeah. I mean, like enough to basically wipe out half of the state in an automatic weapon, wasn't it? Somebody will text me. It was a Revere or Wake. It was somewhere in that area.
Oh, I forget where. But anyway, all of a sudden she's going to do these background checks. She didn't.
Right. She ordered an inspection of all the shelters, the Healy hotels, as they have become known.
And do you know what is the price? What is the price tag of which Massachusetts has spent already?
Oh, billions. Billions.
I think two I heard. And it's like, my fear is, like, I saw an article on Newsweek last night that they did 2024, and they ranked the states. And Massachusetts was still up there, was like ranked the 10th best state. I just think they're gonna, if we keep going the way we are, this governor's gonna destroy the state and the mayor.
Well, again, Steve, I keep saying this, folks. I understand it'd be all the argument. Look, there is a right way and a wrong way to come into a sovereign state. It's that simple. This is not a complicated issue. If you want to come to America, there's a process to follow. Now, I agree 100%, folks, that maybe we need to re-examine that process, and maybe we need to have something like a work visa. That's something, if you are in another country, you want to come here, and you can say, look, this is who I am. Here's my birth certificate from the country I'm in. Here's my schooling records, my health records, and this is why I can be employed in your country. Sure. Let's make that easier. They can come here. They won't have the rights of a citizen, but they can be legally here and work. We've got to streamline that. 100% I get that. But you can't do any of that till you stop the bleeding, and that means you seal the border. You enforce the current border laws, right? The whole MAGA movement and Trump, Steve, has never asked for new laws. Trump has always done, he did it in his first term, he's going to do it in this term, just enforce the laws that are there. And that includes this Orwellian word game where they're forcing us, the whole thing about free speech is we can say what we want, barring, fire in a theater type of thing, but it also means you can't make us say things either. And they've been making us use terminology that they're comfortable with because they don't like the terminology that's the actual statute law terminology, right? So we can't say illegal alien, you got to say undocumented worker. And then they come out with these lists of all these other things that we have to say. Well, here's the thing. Every single time that this money that we're transporting people who came here illegally and housing them and giving them debit cards and even running the meal program, all of that means money has come out of another service. So your tax money that's been collected or is being collected to pay for your schools, your public safety, right? Fire, police, first responders. When all this money is being used, it takes away from those. It's taxing those services. How many stories did we hear about the gymnasium's been shut down because now it's a shelter and police can't cover everything? How many stories in the last 3-4 years have we heard about getting put in a queue at 911 and now police not showing up? Just tell you to file a report. We don't have enough people to go out there. You see what I'm saying? So there's a finite amount of money, and all the tax money is our money, folks. The government doesn't have any money. The money they have is the money they take from us and redistribute to however they do it. So we can't afford this. And when we're paying Healy's, paying these hotels, not only are they taking those off the market from normal commerce, but that's taxpayer money paying those bills. And look at the devastation that has happened to the medical system, right? We got hospitals, not just in Arizona, in Texas, right? We have hospitals down there who have gone out of business because they're hundreds of millions of dollars in the red because the law says you cannot not treat somebody that comes in. And if they come in and they have no insurance, they're not on Medicare or whatever the version of mass health is in that state, they still got to treat them, and they still got to pay doctors and lawyers and administrators, but they have no money coming in for those people because they have nobody to bill. So now we've got good hospitals have gone bankruptcy and bellied up, which means the residents who have lived there their whole life, who pay property tax, who pay your local tax, excise tax for the roads and maintaining, and they run the government and all that, they don't have the services that their infrastructure has been paying. Where's the fairness in that, Steve?
I was with my granddaughter 2 weeks ago, and she comes from a town that has the hotels filled up, and she was telling me how they were supposed to take. She's only in fourth grade, and she was telling us how they were supposed to take this field trip, and it got canceled. And I said, "Why did it get canceled?" "Oh, we don't have the money." Can you imagine it? I know why. They need more teachers. That's why they need teachers to teach English, and it's going to come from the property taxes. This money, this is the town, you know.
And that's an example, right? We need, because now you've got these school systems with this influx of students. Again, these are kids. They're being brought by parents, and that's a whole nother discussion about the kids being sent over with people who aren't their parents. But let's put a pin in that, Steve. That's not the conversation we're having. But what I'm having about, and I've talked about this, folks, is that when there's a shock to an ecosystem, it can't recover. When a community is building over time because developers go in front of the board and say, "Hey, I want to put in 24 houses here," and somebody else says, "I'm going to build some condos," it takes time. In the city planners, okay. And then all of a sudden, kindergarten kind of swells up. Well, they know they've got a decade to get a bigger high school, right? All this works. But if you drop hundreds and then thousands of people in some cases into a town that hasn't been planning for this, you don't have enough housing. Your fire and police can't handle the rising calls. Dispatchers are overwhelmed. There's not enough police, not enough fire to respond to stuff, not enough EMTs. Even things like disposal, waste, and garbage is getting overtaxed. Because now you got 8 people living in a 2-bedroom or 1 bedroom, right? That's a big demand on the sewer system, the water system, the electrical grid. You've got all these things. It's not the way it's supposed to happen. And there's no history of these people paying into the system that they're pulling out of. This conversation that we're getting, Steve, about Social Security and Medicare and stuff, or Medicaid, well, I talk about this a million times. First of all, take the SSI out of Social Security. There's SSI and SSDI. SSDI means that somebody was working and paying into the system and they got disabled. They go on Social Security disability income. And that's fine. They're pulling some money out from what they paid into. SSI means you didn't work enough to get SSDI, but they're still paying you out of Social Security even though you never put any money in. Then they also are paying other programs out of it. And then they've raided the Social Security Trust Fund several times, meaning Congress, that is.
Right.
So if you don't want to touch Social Security and you want it to be solvent, do two things. Immediately pay back all the money that you borrowed from Social Security plus the interest. If we can send 100, 200 billion to Ukraine, we can do that. So fix that way, and then take welfare programs out of Social Security. SSI should be paid from a welfare program, not from Social Security, not from the trust fund that we paid into it over our working careers, our 40 quarters plus. You do those two things right away, and that will go a long way to keeping it solvent and not having to touch it. But we are coming to the clock. You got a final thought or comment you want to share, Steve?
Yeah, just back to the governor for a minute again. Do you notice her backtracking as well lately?
Yeah, I've seen some comments on that, but she is who she is. You know what I'm saying? She's a striped zebra. Her stripes are there.
Yeah.
Nobody's believing her. Nobody's going to believe Newsom. Guys, you have years of your policy, how you think. We know how you think. You can't just change it. We need to change you. We need to change those positions. And I think she's just hoping. She was hoping she was going to get a cabinet position. She was going to go to D.C. if Kamala got in and stuff. And I still think she's hoping for something to happen.
Right.
Marty Walsh or something to rescue her. I don't know. All right.
Good show.
All right, Steve. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. All right, folks. We are coming up to, well, we're basically at the end of the show here, the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show, weekday afternoons at 1 o'clock. Coming your way, except for Fridays, where the Cobb brothers come in and they do their thing. So stay tuned. Howie Carr starts a little early today, 2 o'clock. No, not today. What do we got going on, Ted? We got something. I don't know what's done from. Say again? Retirement security. That's what we got going on. All right, folks. We're good here. All right, man. I will be back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. Joe out.